Hey everyone, I'm Pete and this is Studio Z. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I built this really cool coffee table. But before we get into the build, let me come around and show you some of its key features. Hey everyone, Future Pete here, and I'm here to tell you that that guy has no idea of what's coming. Keep watching the video and I'll be back a little later on and I'll fill you in on what happened with this build. Okay, so let's go over some of this table's key build features. The first thing to note is its dimensions. This table's 54 inches wide and 40 inches deep. And it's 2¼ inches thick. The top and bottom shelves are made out of plywood. Everything is rift sawn white oak. And the most important thing is that the grain is going the short way on the table. And the issue with that is that being it's 54 inches wide, you can't get a sheet of plywood wide enough, one sheet, to cover that. So this top had to be jointed right down the middle. And I had to pick the grain and match it perfectly so that it was invisible. And you'll see that in the build. On top of that, I had to cover the plywood, end grain. I covered the ends with also a veneer that's done in the short grain as well. So all of these pieces had to be handmade. They're individual pieces, and they're glued on. And it's just something really, really cool of a feature that matches the top. Let's see, the legs are made out of solid white oak, again rift sawn, and they're tapered. And they have a little radius at the bottom to meet the top of the bottom shelf. There's an archway carved on the bottom on both sides. Just a cool little detail of this table. The bottom shelf it's set in about 4½ inches on each side, so it's a little narrower. And this one I didn't have to join. It was able to be done in one sheet of plywood. But what's also really cool is how I did the internal ribbing structure for the plywood top and bottom, so that, because underneath you can't see anything, it's also just the plywood. There's no metal or any other types of support in the table, and it's really, really firm. And so again, I'll show you in the build how I went ahead and did that. So let's get to it. So I'm going to start out with the legs for the table first, and this is the rough stock that the legs will be made from. Everything's going to be, again, rift sawn white oak, and the legs are going to be, the stock that I need for the legs is going to be about 18 inches tall and about 4 inches wide, and it needs to be 2 inches thick. So I don't have that stock exactly. So what I plan on doing is, as you can see, the 4 main parts that I have are roughly 1.5 inches thick. And I will then use these other smaller, thinner pieces to, I'll glue them up together, and I will make up the difference, and then bandsaw them down to 2 inches. So that I can make up the stock that way. So these pieces were leftovers from another project, and they're fantastic pieces. I will cut out all of the rift sawn from it. So like stuff like this board here, I won't take this side, I'll take the rift side from it, and I'll do the same, for the rest of them. So they are planed. The faces were planed from the other project that they came from, but they do need to be jointed to make sure that some of the edges are still really rough. And you can see they still have some of the factory stampings on them. And so I need to make a straight edge on one of them before I can rip them on the table saw to the width. So over to the joiners. So that's it for the joiner. If you are new to the channel and you've never seen boards get jointed before, there's another video that I posted on the bed storage bench that has all of the footage on how to operate the joiner and what it does. Okay, so we're at the table saw now, and I've got the ripping blade set up, and we're going to rough the just jointed boards now down to 4.5 inches, which will be a little oversized, so I have more to trim off later once I glue them up and you know, have the rough blanks then. And now I've switched the blade out from the ripping blade to the solid wood cross-cutting blade. And I will true up one side of each piece and then again rough cut it to length so it's still a little long, and I will trim it after it's been glued up. All right, now I have my stop block set up on the fence so I can rough them out to 19 inches. So the leg blanks have all been roughed to size now, and I've paired them up together specifically so that whatever defects might be in the board will be cut off when they have their final shape. This is going to have a taper to it and a radius that will be cut into it. So whatever defect is there will be in the zone where it's getting cut out. And they're all ready to be glued up. And yeah, so let me show you how I do my glue ups. Okay, so now that the glue up is complete, this will sit in the clamps for 2 hours. Then I will take it out and scrape off the glue and begin to finalize them. All right, so I've taken the blanks for the legs out of the gluing clamps, and I've also gone ahead and I've ripped them to the correct width, which is just about 4.5 inches wide. And I've also now got to work on the thickness. I'd like to get them at 2 1/8, so 2 1/8 inches thick, and that's what this one is. So I have to take down the rest of them to match this. And a quick trip to the bandsaw will remove the material necessary to get that close to 2 1/8, and then I'll finish it with the planer. And now just a couple of quick cleanup passes through the planer and we'll get it to the final thickness. Okay, so the boards are now all been planed and they're all the same thickness. I just wanted to show you what it looks like, you know, when you've got a good planer and everything's set right. You can tell they're all exactly the same thickness. So I also drew a little sketch of what the legs are going to look like, and I don't know if the camera is going to be able to pick it up, But I am now going to move on to the template that I'm going to cut to create the leg. As there it goes, now the camera got it. So the legs are going to have a radius cut into them on a taper all the way back up to the top, and this is where the top of the table will be. So there'll be a slight dado here because there's going to be a veneer that's going to go. There's going to be a veneer that's going to go across here. So let me show you how I go about making the template to use on the router to take out this profile. Okay, so let me explain what my template is composed of. So I use 1/4 inch MDF, and I've laid out the pattern that is going to be the leg, and the area located with the X's is the part that's going to be removed and taken off. So I just simply drew out the pattern on it, and what I will now do is take this over to the bandsaw, and I'll start roughing out the straight line, and then I'll finish the curve on the jigsaw. I don't feel like changing the bandsaw blade. It takes over half an hour to do it, and then half an hour again to change it back. So I'll just do that little curve with the jigsaw. And then once I've roughed it out very close to the line, I will use the oscillating belt sander to finalize it and get it right to the line and perfectly straight and smooth for the router to follow. Okay, so I've made the pattern over at the I finished it on the oscillating belt sander. Like I said, I first roughed it out with the bandsaw and then did the radius with the jigsaw. Went over to the oscillating belt sander and sanded it right to the line. And then it comes out really decent off of there, but then I fine tune it with a little hand sand on a flat block, and just to get it really flat so you can't feel anything. And the reason that, if you don't know, this is a template or a pattern, the bearing that will be on a flush trim router bit will be guided through this. It's going to ride along on that edge, and it will finalize the cut on the leg after I've roughed it out on the bandsaw again and jigsaw the corners. So you can see the line that has to be cut. Once that's roughed out, I'll get very close to the line, but I won't touch it. I'll leave maybe a 1/16 of an inch away from the line, and then the flush trim router bit will clean it up perfectly, riding along the template. So let me show you that now, the bandsaw. So as you can see, I've come very close, but I've left, just barely a 1/16 of an inch, maybe a 32nd from the line. And I'll finish the rest with the jigsaw. All right, so I am now over at the router table, and I've installed a flush trim bit on the router. It has a top bearing, so this is what the template is going to ride on and be guided by. I've taken off the bottom bearings for now because this bit is only 2 inches tall, where the leg is 2 1/8, and it wouldn't be enough, so I'll have to make 2 passes to get it to go through. I have taken the template, the pattern, and I have used double stick tape to attach it to the leg, and it will ride obviously on the bottom and on the bearing. So as I'm cutting, I will pass through, and it will finish cleaning up the little bit that's left. I'll then raise the bit a little more, make the second pass, and completely finish the cut. So let me show you how that works. Okay, so these are what the legs look like after routing them, and I haven't sanded them yet or anything, so this is strictly off of the flush trim bit. And now from here, they will get a dado that goes across the top and the side, the outer side, and that's to accept the edge banding and the veneer that's going to go. So there's going to be a seam here, and then there'll be an edge band that goes around it. That's part of the top of the table. So I'm going to do that right now on the table saw. So this is what the legs will look like after the dado has been done to the top. And again, these dado areas will be covered by a veneer or an edge banding. And it will be two different types. On the front face, which is this part here, it will be a vertical or short grain veneer that'll go on this face, and then on this side it'll be the grain will be going this way. Coming up next, I'm going to start cutting the plywood for the top and the bottom of the table. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I have cut the plywood sheets for the underside of the top of the table. That's this that you're seeing now. And then this other piece here will be the underside of the bottom shelf that's closest to the floor. And both the top and the bottom of the table will be made out of plywood. And it will have like a skeleton structure inside. It's going to be, each of the top and the bottom will be 2 1/4 inches thick. And it will have like basically a rib system, like ribs inside of it. Glued to both the bottom panels and what will be the top panels, which are these here. And it'll be like a sandwich, and the ribs will hold it together and keep it really rigid so that it doesn't flex or anything like that. And so I just wanted to show you that these are the bottom panels. I've already started to to cut them to size with the track saw. And again, it's as you've seen in the other videos, like I did in the bed storage bench build. If you aren't familiar with how I cut plywood, you can refer to that video and you'll see in detail how I cut and break down my sheets of plywood. Okay, so I just wanted to take a second to explain how the top of the table is going to be orientated. So the table is 54 inches wide by 40 inches deep. And the only thing is the top, the grain is going to be running the short way. So it's going to be running the 40 inches. And for that reason, the top can't be made out of one piece of plywood. I have to join 2 pieces together to form the 54 inches wide. And what I've done is I've taken, these pieces come from 2 different sheets. So this is one sheet and that's another sheet. And I cut them at a specific point so that the grain matches perfectly with the veneer that's on it. And I've selected it, and I'm going to also cut it again at another point so that I basically have, roundabouts 28 inches on each, from each piece. And there'll be a seam down down this way. And again, I'll pick a point where it's invisible, that, it'll just look like it's one continuous seam. As a matter of fact, when I push the 2 pieces together, you pretty much can't tell that, this isn't one continuous sheet, just based on the way that, the veneers line up perfectly. And so I just wanted to point that out, because again, I will be joining this plywood together like I did in the other video for the bed storage bench. Same procedure, just a little bit longer of a piece. Okay, so after some very painstaking grain selection and matching, I've also gone to the extent to find the seam in the plywood where the veneers were cut, and I cut the two panels on the seam in the plywood, where they were glued at the factory, to make an invisible seam that once put together, you'll never know was there. So again, just a very effective way to seam plywood up. So next up, I'm going to do the dados on the sides so that it'll accept the spline that will go together to hold them together. So I've gone ahead and I've made the dados on either side of the top that the two pieces are going to get joined together. I also have my spline that will go inside there. So I'm going to now glue the spline in and clamp the two pieces together. Okay, so I've gone ahead and the top is now glued together, and it's been finally sized to its final dimension. And this is the seam, again, where I joined it together. You pretty much can't even tell that the two boards, were put together. So now I also want to show you how the top will be put together. And so this is the underside of the top, right? So if that was the top skin, this is the skeleton that goes in between, and the lower part of it, the underside that you don't see. So basically what I've done is created a ribs, like a rib system that will hold the table straight and give me the thickness that I need for the 2 1/4 thick top that we're looking for. It also gives me a system in which to mount the legs to. So what I've gone and done only on the underside is I've notched each corner for the leg. And basically, so the leg will sit in this notch like so. And it will allow me to screw through the face here and into the block behind it so that the leg will be firmly put into place. And then the top will sit on top here, flush with everything. And the reason I did it this way was that the table, the top will sit, it appears that it sits just on top of the leg, and this gives me a better mounting system to firmly attach the leg to the top so that it won't go anywhere. So I just wanted you to see that. And then of course all the edges will have, this side will have edge banding going the long way, and then the front and back here will have edge banding going vertically. So almost like a waterfall edge. It'll match the same grain in the front, the same direction. So it'll be a vertical grain. I have to custom make those for that. So the short grain has to be custom made. All right, so this is the structure now, the underside of the top, after I've glued and screwed all of the ribs to the lower panel, the underside of the top. So everything's been leveled, it's flattened, perfectly flat. All I have to do now is just glue on the top skin, and it'll be all set. All right, and now we wait 2 hours, and hopefully I can take the clamps off, and it'll be good to go. So see you when the clamps come off. All right, so this is the top now out of the clamps. I've sanded the edges, completely smooth and straight, just so that when I edge band it, it'll be nice and flush. And I just wanted to go over again the corners where the legs attach. I created this pocket, as I said, on each corner, and the leg will then go into that notch, and it'll be screwed through and glued here on the face. and then the edge banding will cover all of this all the way around, you know, so that you can't see it. It won't be visible. But it gives a good strong anchor point for the leg to connect to the top. And now I'm going to show you the bottom. Same rib design as the top. However, this is upside down. This is the underside that'll, you know, never be seen. But so because the bottom shelf of this table is going to have an archway that is, you know, routed out through here, an elongated archway. So this will be a little see-through, and I didn't want to show the undersides of the table, so I created this, let's call it like a, you know, little notch nook there, that if you were to be able to see through it, you would just see the oak veneered plywood in the background, so it would look the same, just in case. So coming up next will also be, once I veneer this face with vertical grain veneer, then I can route out the pattern, you know, for the arch that's going to go on either side, on the long side. The short side, this short side will only get edge banding, and the legs will tie into it right here on each corner. So, so yeah, that's the bottom. And now I'm going to go on to making the veneers. All right, so I thought I'd show everyone how I make the short grain veneers. And it starts with, I have a bunch of scrap block wood that's really good, and it's all rift sawn. I've selected it and cut it so that all of it's rift sawn. And I've set up my, my sled so that I have a stop block. And the thickness of the table is 2 1/4. So I've gone a little over that to give myself a little overage, which I will use a flush trim router afterward to, you know, flush with the top. But so I'm basically going to be cutting little 2 3/8 blocks. And from those blocks, I'll then take them over to the bandsaw and slice them up to, say, like a little less than a 1/16 of an inch thick. And each of those pieces will then get glued onto the edge and form the vertical or short grain veneers that will line 2 of the sides of the table. So let me show you how that goes. All right, so now each one of those blocks has to get sliced up into about, like I said, 1/16 of an inch slices. It's going to be a long afternoon. Okay, so I'm at the bandsaw. I've got it set up to cut 1/16 of an inch. And as I showed you, here are the blocks. And I've got a lot of them to pass through. So I won't show you all of them, but I'll show you a pretty good amount. I also want to show you how good this blade is. I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but there's like no marks or anything on the back of the board there. Really, really clean cut. That's the Laguna Resaw King. Really great blade. So I just wanted to make a little side note. I grossly exaggerated, or not exaggerated, made a mistake as to how many of these blocks I needed to cut for the veneers. I only ended up having to cut about 6, 7 of them. Yeah, I made way too many. I don't know why. I didn't think that it was going to make enough. I honestly didn't count. But anyway, here's all the veneers. They're laid out. And, you know, less than a 1/16 of an inch thick. And they range from 3.5 inches to 5 inches. And yeah, well, anyway, good for me. All right, so I've gone ahead and I've dry fitted the table together, top and bottom. Nothing's glued together yet or, you know, screwed into place. I just did a mock-up to make sure everything fits, and it does. I also went ahead and I pre-drilled each leg at the top, and I did it over on the drill press to make sure that everything's the same dimension, straightness the whole way across, so that it goes and bolt and screws into the table. Only the top gets bolted in like this. The bottom is pre-drilled as well from the inside here, and it will screw into the leg. One screw on each leg on the bottom, and glue as well, and 2 at the top. And again, it will also be glued into place. And what's going to end up happening, as I was making before the veneers, is that all of this edge and this will be covered by the vertical grain veneers that I was making. So it'll look like that, all one piece going across, you know, and as if the top sits on top of the leg. And for the side, this side will get horizontal edge banding, just like the bottom here. I already went ahead and did that just because the legs have to mount to that face. So I went ahead and did that beforehand to see how I do the edge banding. If you go to the bed storage bench video, I go into detail about how I do the iron-on edge banding. So from here, I'm just going to finish assembling it with the glue and screws, and then after that, I will apply the veneers. And then the last thing I have to do is I have to cut the archway into the bottom. So I'll make a pattern for that, and then I will route that in as well. That'll be the last thing that gets done. All right, so I've already assembled the table, and I have put on the edge banding on the short sides, on both sides, and I have prepped to do the veneers on the long side. And what I've gone ahead and done is I've pre-masked the edge of the top of the table so that whatever glue I put here on this face won't bleed into the top here and be a pain to remove. So little masking beforehand, you know, goes a long way. The way that I put on these veneers is I either will roll the glue onto this depending on where it goes. Like on this part, I won't roll it. I'll roll the glue on the back of the veneer, and then I will, you know, stick it to there. And I use blue tape to hold the veneer in place. So I will tape it on the top and bottom, and it really gives great, let's call it clamping pressure. It's the best way to put on veneers like that. You get really even, you know, clamping force on it, and it gives you a really tight, nice tight seam. So I've laid out all of them. Just on the bottoms, I have to cut the last end piece when I get there. I'll do that on the spot and just put it in place. So let me show you how this goes. I'll show you one part of it, and then you know, just fast forward over the rest. All right, about an hour or so later, this is what it looks like when it's all taped and it's solid. And one thing I also wanted to point out that when you're applying the veneers and you're taping them, the thing you want to listen for is if you knock on the piece, right? It has a really solid sound to it, and that's when you know that the veneer is firmly bonded to the, to the wood. That's what you're looking for. If you hear like a tinging sound, like a hollow sound in the back, then you know that it has not adhered. These veneers were soaking up the glue exorbitantly. It was really a lot. So I didn't imagine that. I don't know why, but they were really taking in the glue. So I had to put on twice as much, to get it the way I wanted it to, and really stick well. So it's just a little tip when you're gluing stuff like this to if you knock on it, you can hear that it's really firmly adhered to it. There's no hollow sound, no tinging, and that's a telltale sign that it's good to go. All right, so I will next show you what it looks like all done. I got the other side to do still, but you'll see it when it's all finished. Okay, so I've taken all the tape off and the veneers are all dried, and I've hand sanded them just a little bit to clean up the top edge, which was a little higher than the surface of the table. It's not finish sanded, so the actual face is still gonna have to be sanded down about a 32nd. So it'll be a little bit thinner, but you can see it came out really well. And now it's time to cut the arch in the bottom part, the lower shelf. So I just wanted to explain how I go about my process of making that archway. And again, it's done with a template on a router. I've already gone ahead and done it just because it was easier to do it off camera with the router. But I'd like to explain how I go about doing it. So I make a template first, and this I'm using 1/2 inch MDF, and I locate the center of the arch that I have. Once I've located the center, I use French curves that you can pick up at art stores. And this happened to be a multi-pack. It comes with different size French curves, and I use them to, to find the type of curve that I want. And it's not entirely the whole curve. I use this to get the short part of it. And then I also have a flexible curve that I also use that you can, continue the line once you got it where you want it, and you just draw your curve on the template. And once you've gotten your line on there, again, it's the same thing as we did for the leg. You use the jigsaw and you get to within about a 1/16 of the line, and you cut it out, and then just finish to the line on the oscillating sander, and then I finish it by hand. I use a hand sand on a block, and I get it really smooth and straight. Once that's done and you have the template ready, you attach it in place to the lower shelf. You trace the line onto the veneer, and then you remove the template, and you do the same thing like you did with the template. You use the jigsaw to cut to within a 1/16 of that line, and you take out the bulk of it, and you'll be left with about a 1/16 of an inch. Put the template back on as I've just done now, and then using the router again with the flush trim bit and the bottom bearing here, the bearing will then ride on the template, and you can route out the finish of the curve that way, and it comes out perfect every time. You get a nice smooth cut, and this is what it will look like once it's finished. I've, again, gone ahead and done both sides already. But as you can see, you get a nice smooth arch and a really cool detail, just a little detail on this table that you know, adds to its charm. All right, so that's gonna wrap. Whoa, hold on there, Pete, not so fast. Whew, man, he has no idea of what's about to come to him. So let me fill you up, get you up to speed on what happened after this table was built and stained, finished, got picked up and delivered to a holding warehouse. So this table was built for a long standing customer of mine. And after I built the table, so it hadn't been stained and finished yet, I sent photos to them, you know, showing them the table built during the process, and even after it was stained and finished, they received photos of it as well. And the first problem that popped up was that after I built it, they forgot to tell me that the client has young children and they were afraid of having sharp edges on the table, you know, which is understandable. You know, young kids could fall, bang their head and get cut. So the client wanted rounded edges on the upper top of the table. After it had been built, they filled me in on this. After I painstakingly went through hand cutting all of those veneers and everything, there's no room on the table for it. So I came up with a solution to redo the veneers on it, and I got paid for this extra work. So I made thicker veneers and was able to make rounded edges on the upper part of the table. So that was one, let's say, you know, problem diverted. I then went on to stain and finish the table. And this table has a really elaborate, detailed finish, multi-layer process that goes on to it. And so I did that, and then sent them photos, which they thought it looked great. And followed up with them a week after it had gotten picked up and brought to a holding warehouse. And they then discovered that there might be something wrong with it. And long story short, I guess it was partially my fault and you know, everyone involved, that they didn't like the grain of the wood that I had chosen, the plywood that I had chosen. They thought that the grain looked funny to them. And for a table of this caliber and so on and so forth, it just wasn't going to cut it. So not blaming anyone, you know, whatever happened, happened. You know, it is what it is. Again, this is a long-standing customer of mine, and the bottom line is the customer is always right. So if they're not happy with it, then, you know, I have to suck it up, so to speak, and eat it, basically. So there were two ways that could possibly have been fixed. You know, that, yeah, you could say to yourself, well, couldn't you just have re-veneered the, you know, the tops of both the bottom shelf and the top shelf? And that would have worked had the edges not been rounded. So the problem that is posed by those is that now, with the edges being rounded, if I put a new veneer or a new skin on the top of the table, I can't conceal the edge of that veneer because the edge is rounded and you'll see it. So it wasn't going to work. There was another quasi solution that was really stressful for me and involved something in the finishing which I really didn't want to get involved with. It was just much easier for me to just remake the table, and that's where I currently stand. So I have to build them a whole new table, which will obviously, we're gonna go through the selection of the plywood veneers, make sure it meets their desires as far as how it should look. And, just going forward, you got to be careful today, communication, you got to keep up on it. And I know we're all busy, we rush and stuff like that, and accidents happen. And this one slipped through the cracks. But yeah, that's the long and skinny of it. So this table that you're seeing and that you saw in this video is now mine. It will be up for sale. I'm going to be selling it locally. So I just figured I'd give you guys, the update as to what exactly happened during this build. And again, this really happened. It's not, just for the channel. So if you guys enjoy my content, please be sure to like and subscribe, especially now more than ever. It really will help me out. So I appreciate it. And leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think about the situation, about the build, whatever it is. I look forward to hearing, about them. And I think coming up, I'm going to try to focus more of the videos for now. I'm going to do some CNC work. I have some things that I want to test out and try. So that might be, coming up in some future videos. Or if you guys have any opinions, what you might want to see, let me know in the comments. Maybe I can build things that you guys like or do things that you guys like. Again, just let me know. But until then, we'll see you on the next one.